Hello everyone and welcome to the vlog for Thursday, March 4th, 2017. Hope this video finds you well. Today I'm actually going to do two things. The first is give an overview of what I did today like I normally do, and the second is to actually teach you all about the formal elements of game design. So in college, this was a required textbook for my game development courses. It's a game design workshop, a play-centric approach to creating innovative games. I think this textbook is a really good resource, but I'm not treating its word as final by any means. But it does give some good in-depth advice on creating games. So today I basically started writing out the formal elements of my video game, and while I won't share everything with you, I will give you guys a brief overview of what the formal elements are and give you a couple examples that do apply to my game and some other games. So what are the formal elements? Well, the formal elements are 8 different components that can be applied to any game. This can be for a board game, a video game, a sport, you name it. So the 8 different components themselves are players, objectives, procedures, rules, resources, conflict, boundaries, and outcome. And every game will have these 8 different things. So for an example, we can just use, say, chess. Players. Chess has 2 players, both players are equal, both people start with the same amount of pieces, the only difference being the color of the pieces. Objective. The objective is to knock over your opponent's king. Procedures. Each player takes a turn, moving one piece at a time. Rules. The game of chess has many rules. The main rule is that one square can only be occupied by one piece. If 2 pieces occupy the same square, then the piece that was there prior to the new piece coming in is removed from the board. Resources. Each player has a total of 16 pieces at their disposal. Conflict. Conflict comes into play when players either remove or block their opponent's pieces. Boundaries. You can only place the pieces on one of the 64 tiles on a chessboard. And finally, outcome. At the end of the game, you'll have one winner and one loser. So let's take a closer look at some of the formal elements. So when we talk about the formal element of the player, it's a little more than just the number of players. The first thing we want to look at is the invitation to play. In the game of chess, one player would ask another player, "Hey man, want to play some chess?" Oh, you know it. In a video game, the invitation to play is typically the start screen. This is your player's first experience with your game, and you want them to start stepping into the world that you're creating. The textbook gives an interesting example of the invitation to play for Guitar Hero is when you're strapping that guitar on, and it basically just gives you an excuse to do whatever the hell you want because you're a rock star, right? The next thing we'll take a look at is the number of players. How many players are playing your game is a very important consideration because a single player game is going to play a lot different than a massively multiplayer online game where you have tens of thousands of people playing your game. And you're also going to want to keep in mind the role of each player. So sometimes in games, players can have similar roles. So like in the Madden video games, both people are controlling a team of players. And players can have widely different roles. So for example, in the game Evolve, there's a group of 4 people playing against one single monster. And even within that group of 4 people, each player has their own different roles. So there's, a sniper and a healer and all these things that I don't really know. And so you're also going to want to look at player interaction patterns. This is how the player is actually interfacing with your game. So there's a total of 7 of these, and I'll just briefly name these off. There's single player versus game, player versus player, multiple individual players versus game, unilateral competition, multilateral competition, cooperative play, and team competition. So to wrap things up for the player, you want to have a really clear idea of how your player is going to be interacting with your game because it will greatly affect your game design choices. The next formal element is objectives. This is something that you give your player to strive for. The textbook lists 10 of these objectives, but there are many more. So the first is capture, where you try and capture your opponent's terrain or you kill the king or something like that while avoiding being captured yourself. The second objective is chase, where your goal is to either catch an opponent or elude one. The third objective is race, where you want to reach a set goal before the other player. The next objective is alignment, where you want to align physical pieces in a certain way to win the game. So think Tetris or Connect 4. The fifth objective is rescue or escape. Now this can be an overall goal like rescuing the princess at the end of a game, or escaping the particular level with a certain jewel for some sort of bonus. The sixth objective is one that you typically don't find too often in video games, and it is known as the Forbidden Act. It's basically where you want to get your opponent to break the rules by laughing or some other means. When you're a kid and you're playing Operation and you're trying to get that little wrench out of the guy's leg or whatever, and then your buddy's all barking down your throat saying, you can't do this, and you mess up, and then you all laugh and have a great time. That's basically the Forbidden Act. The seventh objective is construction. So this is where you want to build or maintain objects. So think of games like SimCity or even real-time strategy games like StarCraft. The eighth objective is exploration, and this is where the player basically goes out into the unknown and sees what they can find. I think exploration is going to be a pretty big part of my game, just saying. The ninth objective is solution, and you basically want to find the solution to a problem before or more accurately than your opponent. And you can think of games like Connect 4, Tic-Tac-Toe as some physical game examples of the solution objective. And the 10th and final objective is outwit, where you want to try and outwit your opponent with either prior knowledge or some sort of strategical advantage in the game. So now to tie this all back to my personal game project, a little exercise I did was for each of these objectives I wrote down some potential scenarios that could show up in my game. Not all of these will be used and some will be more prominent than others, but I think it was a really neat exercise nonetheless. Most of these objectives are pretty specific to my game, but there were a couple vague ones that I'd just like to share with y'all. So I wrote down two for the chase objective, the first being someone steals something important to you and you follow clues to track him down and get your blank back. And the second one is, you steal something important to a nefarious organization that will lead to their demise. Avoid/defeat them at all costs en route to your home base, where you can take advantage of that item. So again, those were just two vague examples from this little exercise I did. And I think it was kind of a fun way to challenge me to start thinking outside the box of the ideas I already had in my head. And the final formal element that I was speaking about today is procedures. Now, procedures are the ways in which your player actually interfaces with your game. So for example, the first line I have written down under my procedures section of my notes here for my game is, players will play my game with a controller at a close to medium distance from their screen or monitor. So that being said, I definitely want players to interface my game with a controller, and I know I may be alienating a lot of the PC players by doing this, so I'll see if I can work in some way of getting mouse and keyboard support. And then, so going off that, the rest of the procedures, you want to kind of document what each button on the controller or keyboard does, and if there are different conditions that need to be met for those buttons to work. So for example, in Super Mario Bros., holding down the B button will cause Mario to sprint, while if you pick up the Fire Flower, you can press the B button to throw fireballs. So those are just three of the formal elements that I'll be talking about today. Expect more in the future. And so yeah, the bulk of the day for me was basically just writing out all those formal elements, doing some different exercises with them to challenge myself to start thinking outside of the box, and really starting to get some official documentation going on my game, with a proper game design document to come very soon. And of course, I edited one of my previous blogs and got that uploaded to YouTube. Go check that out if you haven't already. And so that's about it for this vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you liked this video, please browse my channel for other ones just like this. To stay up to date with my latest content, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to help me out, hit the thumbs up button. I am still pretty new to this, so let me know what you think of the format. All constructive criticism is greatly appreciated. And until next time, take care everyone.